back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, commending to your kind attention Tarpley.net. Tarpley.net now has a commentary that I taped on Russia Today on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, dealing with this convergence of crises, primarily the Korean situation with the crisis of the Irish and British zombie banks. So that is to be seen at Tarpley.net. Now let's get into this this crisis. We had followed this about a month ago, right? There was a big blow up in the Irish Parliament, the Dáil, which had to do with the government, right? This Cowan and Lenihan. These are Fianna Fáil, the men of destiny. Yeah, right. These are the worst bankers' puppets in the Western world so far. These are right-wingers. They're even worse somehow than the Socialist International, the Second International, right? They're giving Papandreou, Socrates, and Zapatero a run for their money when it comes to rolling over for the banks. This is just unbelievable what these characters are doing. They want to bring in the International Monetary Fund and essentially abrogate Irish sovereignty. And this really hurts. This is a country that has had the most troubled history of foreign occupation by the British. They have been crushed more thoroughly, really, than just about any other European small country by a neighboring large country, and they have been put through the ringer for several centuries, right? And we've looked back to figures like Wolfe Tone leading the rebellion back in the 1790s, right, trying to link up with Napoleon to kick the British out of Ireland. And we all remember Daniel O'Connell, right, at least the idea of home rule and the rest of that. But now that's all out the window, right? All those struggles, right? All that, the stuff with the black and tans and the horrible oppression, right? The horrible human rights violations by the British in Ireland. Well, all that was to have a sovereign state. Well, the sovereign state is now out the window. We have the program of the bankrupt and discredited and hated Cowan-Lenihan government. Cowan, the prime minister, Lenihan, the finance minister. These people should be ejected. They should immediately be brought down by a vote of no confidence, and they should then be subject to some kind of an indictment for traducing the country to this powerful foreign enemy, the International Monetary Fund. It's all done in the service of the British banks, right? This is the London banks that are the beneficiary of this, and this makes it all the more bitter. A return to imperial domination by London financial interests, but now done by parties calling themselves Irish. Here's the lowdown on the austerity plan, and we should see this as a dress rehearsal, of course, for what the Republicans and their Tea Party friends are going to want to bring to the United States. I can see Congressman Ryan saying, oh, we had the British austerity, now we have the Irish austerity, and we're going to bring that over here, right? These jackals and hyenas of the Republican caucus now in the House who are going to propose that the zombie bankers feast on the flesh of the United States in the same way that they're feasting on the flesh of Ireland, because that's what this is. The question in the Depression, who pays for the Depression? Will the Depression be paid for by the zombie bankers and hedge fund hyenas who created it? Or will they succeed in shifting the costs to the population, the middle class, the working people of the country, through this story about balanced budgets and regaining the confidence of investors, reassuring the markets, all of this idiotic verbiage we've been hearing about investors and markets. It's a cartel. This is an oligopoly system, and they are coordinated, right? We saw this with the attack on Greece, the meeting at Mones, Crespi, and Hart. The Irish austerity program announced today, as we're speaking, Prime Minister Cowan, who should be tarred and feathered and run out of town on a rail just on general principles. This servant of the zombie banks wants to cut the gross domestic product of Ireland by 12% in 2011. Now, that's a depression right there. You cut your gross domestic product by 12%, you are in one heck of a depression. And that is where Ireland is going. It's going back to being the land of poverty and of forced immigrations that it was. We saw the same phenomena going on in Iceland a year ago, and unfortunately, the power of the Second International there, the Socialist International, through the socialist government, the lady who's the prime minister, was able to essentially ward off any solution to the crisis. So they're going to cut the gross domestic product by 12%. And this takes the form of $20 billion now. I'll give you the figures in dollars. $20 billion of cuts between 2010 and 2014. Now, this is a country with fewer than 5 million people, and the policy is cut and gut. $20 billion, and 40% of this is front-loaded in the year 2011. I would direct the attention of Messrs. Cowan and Lenehan to the Nuremberg precedents that the deliberate policy of depriving a civilian population of adequate medical care, food, shelter, and other necessities of life, under whatever pretext, done, is a high crime against humanity. And look what happened to certain Nazis at Nuremberg who were found guilty of doing this. I think this is the only historical parallel we can point to. Two-thirds of the savings is in the form of cut and gut, one-third in the form of new taxes, and those are all regressive. Notice again, just as we saw with the Rivlin, Domenici, austerity ghouls, and their colleagues, the austerity vampires, Bowles and Simpson, there's no tax on banks, there's no Wall Street sales tax, Robin Hood tax, Tobin tax, securities transfer tax, financial turnover tax, trading tax, none of that. There's nothing that targets the super rich derivatives mongers who are the creators and beneficiaries of the crisis. Rather, the minimum wage. The Irish minimum wage, good that they have one, €8.65. 8.65 euros is the current minimum wage, higher than the U.S. Isn't that interesting? Way higher. That now goes down by one whole euro to 7.65 euros per hour as a minimum wage. How about them apples? In terms of public sector jobs, of course, we know those greedy unions, 28,000 jobs will be destroyed. Now, this is in a country of 5 million, right? So you can multiply all of this by about essentially 60 to get the size of what it would be like in the U.S., and you get the idea. The sales tax, the worst of all taxes, well, other than the poll tax, that is worse still, but the sales tax, one of the worst forms of regressive taxation. Again, it cuts into the necessities of the poor, the amenities of the working class, and hardly touches the luxuries of the super-rich parasites. The sales tax goes from 21 to 23%. There's a series of draconian cuts in the social safety net. This all contained in a 140-page catalog of genocide, I guess we'd have to say, called the National Recovery Plan. It is a plan for the national suicide of Ireland. It must be defeated. We'll be back in a minute.